Hi everybody, my name's Paul Tran from Indicia Training. Welcome to our short session today on CV skills. This session is one of three. We have job search skills, which I'd recommend if you're starting your job search from scratch. We've also got interview skills, which has got some really good tips about how to really excel in the interviews that you're going to get very, very soon. And what we're going to do through this session is we're going to pause, because at various points I'm going to ask you to stop and either take a look in your workbook and do the exercises in there, or just follow my instructions and just use the piece of paper that you have handy with you right now. Because what we'd like to do is make this as interactive as possible, so that through our time together today, we can work through some little exercises to get you started to piece your CV together. So let's, without ado, have a think about what we're going to have a real good look at today. These are our objectives for today. The first objective is that we're going to just stop for a moment and have a think about your key skills, strengths, and achievements. Now, if you've taken a look at our job search skills video, you'll have already done this little exercise with examples of skills, strengths, and achievements for you. If not, we're going to give you a bit of time to have a think about that today and jot them down. And I recommend that you keep adding to them too. Our next objective today is to consider what actually goes in your CV. Best CV length, 2 pages, possibly 3 at a push. And that means that we've got to be really careful about what goes in and very mindful of what we don't need to go in. The next objective we have is to make the most of our personal profile, that lovely paragraph at the start of our CV, which gives the highlights of why the reader, A, should carry on reading, and B, start to get really interested in meeting you in person. The next objective is to take a look at some CV formats. There are 2 main ones. We're going to introduce a third one for you as well, but we'll take a look at those. And then we'll think about the right level of information that you put in each role. Looking at the first objective, we've got to think about our skills, our strengths, and particularly our achievements in each role. Because what you're saying to the reader is, I did that there, and I can do it with you too. And then we're going to move on to the importance of cover letters or cover emails. 2 things here. One is it shows that you can write, you can put something together, because these days people go online and use CV templates. So your cover letter is something personal, it's clearly written by you. But again, it's something where you can highlight important aspects of your CV that are relevant to the job or the organization that you're writing to. And again, that gives someone a compelling reason to pick up your CV and look at it enthusiastically. The only thing you have to bear in mind with a cover letter or cover email is the person might not read it. They may just go straight to your CV, but it's nice to cover yourself. So there are objectives for today. Let's get stuck in and start off by how we prepare your CV. And there's 3 things that we're going to look at here today. First thing is our skills. These are the abilities that we tend to acquire over time, from when we were young right through to our age now. Then we're going to take a look at our strengths. These are the characteristics or behavioral traits that we have. We're kind, we're honest, we're conscientious. The things that people rely on us for. And then we've got our achievements. These are the tasks or results that you're proud of. Now, let's just jump back a little bit here and consider our skills. If you take a look at pages, where are we, 2 and 3 in your workbooks, if you have them to hand, we've got some space for you where you can just start to think about the skills you think you have. And again, if you're struggling, have a think about what people would say about you, people who've worked with you, have trusted you, managed you, relied on you. What I'm going to do is give you the chance to stop the recording, pause it, and spend 5 minutes jotting down all your skills. Welcome back, everybody. I hope you've filled that gap in the workbook with all your skills. What we're going to do now is get you thinking about your strengths. These are our behavioral traits, our characteristics that people will say about us. Paul is honest, Paul is conscientious, Paul is reliable. All those things that make people like working with us. And they're the things that will make people recruit us. And it's great to highlight them on your CV. So again, take a look in your workbooks. And what we've got there is a space. I'd like you to spend 5 minutes thinking about your strengths. Be honest. Don't be over modest. And again, if you're stuck, have a think about what people would say about you. I'll stop the recording, pause it. I'll see you in 5 minutes. Okay, everybody. I hope you fill the space up with all your strengths. Again, I'd recommend that you come back to this and add to it and add to it and add to it, because if you've got loads of skills and strengths, you can then start to think which ones are most appropriate for the job or the organization that I'm applying for right now. Now, the third thing are our achievements. These are the results, the tasks that we're proud of. And if we've held down a job for any length of time, the likelihood is that we've done stuff that we've been praised for, rewarded for, or just had a good pat on the back. And it's really important on our CV that every job we've done, we talk about our achievements, what we did, not just about the tasks, but what we actually achieved. It could be that you beat your target. It could be that you built something. It could be that you innovated something, implemented a project. Call it what you will. What we've got in your workbook is on page 4, a little set of columns for your table, where what we can do is get you thinking, what was the job? What did I do? What skills and strengths did I use? And what the results were. Now, you've already thought about your skills and strengths. Now we're going to think, what did you achieve when you were there? And you might have to dig deep here because we're sometimes a little bit modest. And what I'd like you to do is spend 10 minutes having a good look at this. Go job by job. What skills did I use? What strengths did I use? And what results did I achieve? Pause the recording. And I'll see you in 10 minutes' time. And welcome back, everybody. Hopefully, you've got a big list of skills, a big list of strengths, and you've logged job by job the achievements that you're proud of, because that's going to be highlighted later on when you go job by job within your CV. Now, let's have another think about CVs. We've all looked at them and we've had a think about them. We've laughed at them. We've cheered them. I'd like you to have a think about some common mistakes that you've noticed in CVs that you've seen. Maybe even some of the ones that you've done yourself in the past. Pause the recording, take a look in your workbook, and just jot down some of the mistakes that you've noticed. Oh, welcome back. I'm sure you've got a few, maybe even 1 or 2 from your own CVs. We've got a few here for you. Let's have a think about some of these mistakes. One that we see quite a lot is it's just poorly typed and poorly written. It's not lined up. The English doesn't make much sense. Happens quite a lot. Sometimes they're too long. I'm in my mid to late 50s now. I've had quite a long career. If I put everything in my CV, it'd be more than 2 pages. Ideally, 2 pages is the standard that we're looking at. Push, you could do 3. Let's see if we can do it to 2. And that really means we have to focus on what goes in. More on that later, everybody. The next one is that there's too much detail. My career started when I was 13 years old when I did a paper round. I delivered to 74 houses in the areas of Liverpool, L23 and L22. No. Current job. Let's go back 5, 6 years. That's probably what we're going to get recruited for. We don't want too much detail. What skills I used, what strengths I used, what achievements I made. That's the kind of detail that we're looking for. Oh, sometimes there's not enough detail. I was a customer service representative. I worked with customers, sorted out problems, made them happy. We generally look for a little bit more detail than that. You know, what my customers were, what kind of problems I sorted out, how did I get on with my targets, what did I actually achieve, and what did I do to keep them happy? The next mistake is that our email and our phone numbers are not correct. And that's an absolute howler, but sometimes we do our CV quickly, we don't check it, and we get that wrong. So this is the first point of many on this session where I'm going to say, check, 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 and get someone else to check it too. The next mistake that's quite common are the funny email addresses. bigbadpaul99.com. Nah, just keep it kind of normal. Remember that not everybody thinks your funny is funny. So just keep it nice and simple and professional. Paul Tran blah at blah. That tends to work quite well, I find. So nice and sensible with the email addresses. And sometimes there's no achievements on a CV. It's a lovely list of the jobs you've had, the titles that you've had, the dates, lovely, everything fabulous. And yet, there's no achievements. So we don't know what you did. We just know that you were there. And even if you think it's not worthy of being called an achievement, have a think about it, because it probably is. Now, there's more of them. Let's have a think about that. It's sometimes not pitched at the job or the company. It's a bland CV, a catch-all document. There's no relevance to the job or the company that you're applying for. So let's make sure that it's actually pitched and you've thought about it. And this is why we're asking you to do a big list of skills and strengths and achievements, so you can pitch it to the job and or the organization you're going for. The next common mistake is poor grammar and spelling. Again, knowing your luck, you'll send your CV to someone who really has a thing about grammar and spelling. They start to think, if they've got that wrong, what else will they get wrong? What else don't they check? So make sure that your grammar and spelling is spot on. Another mistake is gaps in dates. Straight away, it gets the reader thinking, what went on there? Why was there a gap? It's a big gap, explain it. There's usually a very good reason for it. And be really clear about gaps that are there. The next one is there's just irrelevant information on there. Loads of stuff about your hobbies. A little bit's fine, but loads of stuff about your hobbies. Stuff that isn't of any use to the recruiter whatsoever. It's much, much better if you keep the information relevant. And sometimes if we've worked in a technical setting, there's too much jargon in our CV. Let's work on the basis that we'll just use plain English that everybody understands. And that's the best way of making sure our CV looks really good. The next one are wacky, extreme typefaces or loads of visual effects. It's usually better to keep it nice and simple. Use something very, very simple like Calibri or Arial. And these are typefaces that are very easy to read. Now remember that the person reading your CV may have looked at them 50, 100 of them a day, or they could be looking at them right at the end of the day when they're tired. So make sure you just use a professional typeface. And again, visual effects, they don't always work so well when your CV is copied. And if they read it on email and it's got lovely, funky stuff on there, It just doesn't always work. Just keep it nice and simple. And one common mistake is including a photograph. Now, there's lots of schools of thought on this. Generally, the thing about a photograph is that people will judge you on your photograph and not on the content of your CV and your skills, strengths, and achievements. The other thing to bear in mind is that often CVs are photocopied and sent round to an interview panel or a recruiting team, and your photograph might not copy very well. And all of a sudden, the lovely photograph you have of your handsome or pretty smiling face starts to get blurred, and then people take a view on that. You're better off not putting one in there. Now, if an organization says when you apply, please enclose a photograph, enclose a photograph. Don't have it embedded in your CV. It sometimes causes problems in the process. Now, how many of those did you get? You might have even thought of some other ones. If you do, let us know. These are the most common ones that we find. And what's important to think about is, let's make sure none of these are on my CV. So we've looked at some mistakes. What we're going to look at now is carrying on preparing our CV. Let's have a think about what actually needs to go in your CV. Take a look at your workbook. So if your workbooks aren't with you, grab a bit of paper. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pause the recording and I'm going to ask you to jot down what you think needs to go in your CV. I'll see you in 5 minutes. Now, welcome back. Hopefully you've got a nice, big, long list of what goes in your CV. We'll talk about the order later on, but let's have a think about a little bit more detail here. So, contact details, name, phone number, email address, and we'll talk, LinkedIn profile is good on your CV too, by the way, something nice and customized that you can do on LinkedIn. Your personal profile, one short paragraph highlighting why they've got to keep reading and why they've got to see you for an interview. Then we go through your employment. Generally, that's what works, needs to be in there. Your achievements, what you did in each job you were in. Your qualifications, and again, it could be really relevant and highlight the ones that are relevant to the job or organization you're applying for. Your education, and again, bearing in mind, this could be quite recent for some of us. Even if you're not impressed with your qualifications or education, it's important it goes in there. And what training have you done? Particularly if it's training that's relevant to the job you're applying for. You don't need to put every single course you've done, but what's useful is to have a think about what's relevant and what makes you a little bit more attractive to the recruiter. And it's also nice to just put something in about your interest, just one line. Often it's a nice icebreaker in interviews, and it just shows that you do things when you're not working. Just be mindful of what you put in there. I've seen some very interesting ones in my time. I've seen someone write social drinking. It's just nice to give someone a flavor of what your interests actually are. And this could be useful because if you're going for an interview, it could be a nice little talking point at the start of the interview. They may have a common interest with you, but also it just shows a little bit about you and your character. So be mindful that you're going to have to talk, you may have to talk about your interests once you get an interview. So keep it nice and consistent, keep them true. And that's what needs to go in your CV. Now, what's next? Our personal profile. This is really, really interesting. Often what we find is that they get copied off the internet or off various job search websites. We've got some nice guides here. Here's a nice definition of what a personal profile is. It's a paragraph which summarizes your personal qualities. You don't need to talk about every job you've done here. This is the reasons why they should keep reading and be interested in you. The second point is it adds instant impact to your CV. Imagine you're walking down the street, you walk past a paper shop and you see a load of headlines. I bet you you've walked past, stopped, looked at a headline and thought, I'm buying that because the headline is compelling and it's attractive. And that's what our personal profile does. It says to the reader, this person's interesting, keep reading. Not only that, keep reading with added interest and enthusiasm. So it encourages them to keep reading. That's what your personal profile essentially is. I would give this lots of thought. It's often the first thing people look for. If you're gonna copy one off a template, don't. This is where you make it really personal and you make it about you and not a general person that could be anything else. Believe me, I spent 10 years working in recruitment. I could tell at one point which websites people were copying their profile from. So make it individual and bear in mind that whatever's in your profile is going to run through your CV like the letters on a stick of rock. So what you mentioned in your profile, you refer to it in all the jobs that you've done. That makes it nice and consistent. Now, if you take a look in your workbook, what you'll find is a nice space. And that space is where we want you to have a go at a profile. Just to help you, we've got an example here. And this is from a delivery driver. I'll let you have a look at that and read it. Just enough detail in there that shows that this person's had 5 years experience, 100% safety record, consistently delivers on time and in good condition. Not just that, but in general, they're an excellent company representative. You look at that, you're looking for a driver, you've got to be interested. There's no cliches in there about it. It's just good factual stuff. And what I would hope if I saw this, that would be that the person's CV, job by job, would refer to them being reliable and punctual, would refer to them being consistently on time and in good condition with the deliveries. And it would see that they've got more than 5 years experience. So that's a sample. Don't copy this, especially if you're not a van driver. But here's what we'd like you to do. Use the space in your workbook and have a go at writing your personal profile. Now, this could just be a first draft, that's fine. If you haven't got your workbook with you, get a piece of paper. If you want to use this as an example, try that. In your workbook, we've got a few examples of different professions. They're there as a guide. Please don't copy them. Give that a go. I'm going to give you 15 minutes. Have a good try at this. Pause the recording. I'll see you very soon. Welcome back. I hope you've come up with something. Remember, it's just a short paragraph. It's a taster. I would spend a lot of time on your profile. It's one of the things that a lot of recruiters look at first. So you've got a personal profile done. Brilliant. What we're going to have a think about now is some CV formats. There's two main ones, but we'll look at three. There's the chronological one, where you start off from now and go backwards. There's the functional format, and that's a really good one if we're changing career and we just want to talk about the skills we've got, what we've done, rather than job, 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 job. And then there's a self-employed format, which isn't used that often these days. It's one I use quite a lot, so I'm freelance. And you talk about where you've worked, what you've done, because we will get contracts and we'll do jobs here, jobs there. So let's take a look at how these look. The chronological format is really, really simple. Put your personal details up there. Your profile goes in there. Your employment history from now or your last job, and then go backwards. Not all the way to your paper round when you were a teenager, though. This is a judgment call. Most organizations will probably recruit you because of the last 2 or 3 jobs you've done. I would say generally it's the last one you've done. Don't go too far back. Always, always, always think about skills and strengths in each role and the results. That's back to your achievements. We'll keep talking about this time and time again. It's really important, everyone, to stress your achievements. Yep, qualifications, memberships of any professional bodies or any other bodies if you think that may be of relevance to the recruiter, the training that you've undertaken, and again, let's make this relevant to the job, relevant to the organization, your education, just so they know you did go to school, but also, did you go to college, did you go to university, or did you undertake any education as an adult? And remember, it's not just about getting degrees, it's about the fact that you're still learning, you're still evolving. And so many of us these days will do courses as adults because we didn't have the time, money, or inclination to do it when we were younger. It's great to have that on there too. And some hobbies and interests. One line. I'm interested in football, horse racing, musical instruments, whatever it is. Make them true. And that's what most people call a standard CV. Now, let's take a look at the functional format. It's slightly different. Again, your personal details, your profile. And this is where it's different. Straight in to key skills and achievements. If you're changing career, you're not going to be selling your current or last job. You're going to be selling the fact that you've got loads of transferable skills. So this is where this format comes into its own. Key skills and achievements, your employment history, an outline, any qualifications or memberships that you have. And again, this is really important if they're relevant to the job you're applying for. Same with training, same with education. And again, hobbies and interests at the bottom, just to give them a feel for you. For those of us who are thinking of going self-employed or doing some interim work, again, personal details, your profile, recent clients, people that you've worked for, any key assignments that you've undertaken. So that could be a project with a large organization for 3 months, or it could be that you were involved in constructing something in a large public sector building, whatever it may be. Again, any qualifications and memberships, and often for those of us who are self-employed or interim, we usually have some kind of body. And a good recruiter will be thinking, right, this person works in this field. Let's see if they're affiliated to any trade bodies. It's important to have that on there. Whatever training we've done that's relevant, again, education that's relevant, and your hobbies and interests. What you've got in your workbook are a couple of examples of CVs. Again, there are hosts of places on the internet to look at. Whatever format you use, what's really important is that you use you and make it personal, and don't write as if you could be anybody. So we'll keep saying time and time again, you've really got to take your time with this. Think about the format that's relevant. Most of us use the chronological one. They're the examples that we have in there. And also the samples in the workbook have got a nice level of detail about what people did for each job and what their achievements were. So that's your CV format. What we're going to look at now are cover letters and emails. Now, sometimes particularly with email, it's easy, it's quick. We sometimes don't think enough about it. It's really important to get these right because, well, it's just a good demonstration of our competence, but also we may get someone reading our letter, our CV, who's really into detail. And for a lot of jobs these days, we still have to write things. We have to write reports. We have to talk about why something did or didn't work, why it succeeded, why it failed. Even if we've got to do it on a handheld computer, we've still got to type stuff. So it's important that we know how to write coherently. So let's have a think about this. First thing is we've got to state our reason for our application. Now, if it's a job that's been advertised, this is an application for the job of customer service representative. It could be a speculative letter that we're sending, and we'll look at that in the job search skills video that we've done for you. The reason for my application is I'm very interested in working for an organization like yours, etc., etc. So the reason's got to be in there. The second thing is, let's link your strengths and skills to the job or to the organization. That's all those nice little hooks that you have. You know the industry, you've worked in it, you've had lots of clients in that industry, you've got loads of experience that you can prove. The next important point is that when you send an email or a letter with your CV, request an interview or a meeting. That's what your CV is there for, really, isn't it? It's there so that you're interesting enough that they want to meet you. Even if you're applying speculatively, ask for an interview or meeting. You don't know what companies have in store. They don't, especially at the moment. So always ask for that. Sounds obvious, but I've seen some belters written on strange paper that's wacky, colourful, and it distracts me from what I want to be looking at, which is this person worth meeting? So type it and put it on A4 paper, white A4 paper. Hasn't got to be fancy. Again, CV might get photocopied. If you spend money on expensive, fancy paper and it gets photocopied, there's no point. Good, for want of a better word, ordinary, decent white paper's fine. And the next point is it's really useful if you can address it by name. Find out who you need to speak to. Find out who's going to be your manager, not just the HR department, not just the person responsible for recruiting. See if you can find out the person who's likely to be your manager, because they're the person that will probably go to HR and say, "Hey, I've seen this CV. It's really good. You know, have a look at this. It's really good." So have a think about this. State the reason for why you're writing to them. Link your skills and strengths to the job or the business. Request a meeting or an interview if it's for a job. Make sure that you type it on white A4 paper and find out who needs to go to. They're 6 really, really cool steps. If you have your workbook with you, we've got a sample cover letter. Feel free to have a look at that. What I'd like you to do is just very, very quickly have a think about this and write your cover letter. Welcome back. I hope you've put a good cover letter together. So far, we've looked at your skills, your strengths, your achievements. We've looked at different formats of CV. We've looked at how you put a really good profile together. We've had a look at 3 different formats. We've also taken a look at some cover letters and emails. Let's summarize a few things here. You've really got to take your time to complete your CV. It always takes longer than you think. So whatever time you allow for it, at least double it. If you get it right, it pays dividends later, especially if you're sending it to lots of different places. Your CV is one of the most important parts of your job search, so make sure you get it right. And it's a brochure. It's designed to get you an interview. If you've ever looked at a flat or a house that you're buying or renting, you look at the bump, you like the look of the brochure. That's what your CV is. It's there to get you an interview. Most people I know, they've never got a job based on the CV, but they've got an interview based on the CV. So if we get it right, it gets you in front of people. Target your CV specifically at the job or the field you're applying for. I have 7 different versions of my CV, and that's purely down to market sector or the type of work I'm looking for. If you get it right, all you've got to do then is make sure you know what's the best version to send. And of course, you need to remember which one you sent. So your record keeping is really important here too. So don't be afraid of having more than one version. And if you've got lots of skills, strengths, and achievements written down, think about the best ones for the particular job you're applying for. Be honest and be concise. Emphasis on achievements. What you want to do with your CV is paint a picture, or maybe even a movie, of the person reading it and watching you at work, and straight away visualizing you doing that role for them. And make sure it looks professional. So if you're not a hotshot on formatting, get someone to help you with that. Make it consistent. Same fonts all the way through. Good headings. Make it really easy to read. Always have a suitable cover letter or email with your CV. And again, lovely hooks in there. This is why I'm interested. This is why I'm particularly interested in applying for this job for you. Review and update your CV regularly. That's really important because you never know when you're going to need it. And if you're going to spend so much time looking at it now, you'll know how important it is to keep it updated so that if you need to apply for something tomorrow, it's really easy to just get your CV out. Make sure your social media profiles are consistent with your CV too. If you're on LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook, make sure that everything they can see on your social media fits with how you describe yourself in your CV. We all like a laugh. We all like enjoying stuff. Remember that social media is a brand. You on your social media are a brand. And I know recruiters, one of the first things some of them do is they go straight onto Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and they have a look and see if what you say on your CV matches what you do on social media. So I would love you to have a think about your takeaways from our time together today, what you thought worked really well, what the things you're going to take and do and learn. This is just a nice little starter for you. Take your time with your CV. Make sure you get it right. What you've got to do with your CV is give it the best version of you so that they're so interested that they want to meet you. So take your time with it, work at it, and you'll get the results. Best of luck with putting your CV together, everybody. I hope to see you on the interview skills video if you're interested in that. And if you haven't had a look at the job search skills video, I would recommend that you take a look at that. That's some nice background to do before you even start looking in earnest. Thanks for your time today and for putting the work in, everybody. Hope to see you very, very soon. Good luck with your CV.